Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Grant and I'm delighted to offer this segment to Secret Men's Business on Secret Men's Enlightenment. So let's have a talk about it. Secret Men's Enlightenment. Why don't we talk about Tantra? Let's talk about Tantra. What is it? What is Tantra really? What is Tantra really? You know, when I teach at workshops and retreats and when I teach people one-on-one, I get asked this question a lot. What is Tantra really? It's all about sex, right? That's what Tantra is. It's all about sex. No. No, it's not. Now, what we tend to have in the West is we have this idea that it is all about sex. And that's because in the West, we tend to be more familiar with something called Neo-Tantra. Neo-Tantra is something that started around about 150 years ago. And it's really based on embodiment practices and the link between the body and our personal bliss or our ecstasy. It's a very beautiful practice, and I actually do teach it in conjunction with the classical Tantra. Now, classical Tantra is another kettle of fish. It's different. It started in India as a result of practitioners being a little bit angry with the Brahmanical tradition in India. So, for example, if you wanted something for your life, say for example you had a goal you wanted to achieve, you'd need to go to the Brahmins and commission a puja, say for example a Yajna, like a fire ceremony, and then the Brahmins would be the intermediary between you and the absolute. Tantra decided that, well, did you really need the Brahmanical class? Did you need the Brahmins? Did you need the priests? Or could you touch the divine directly yourself? So it was a reaction in a way against organized religion, the organized religion of the time. And a lot of the practices are to do with your own experience of your own bliss, your own experience of your own enlightenment, your own experience of connection to the great mystery, all it is. So, Neo-Tantra is very body-based, very physical, very breath, sound, movement. It's around about 150 years old. Classical Tantra, some of the scriptures in Classical Tantra that are the most famous scriptures are ones from around about the 9th to 11th century. So they're much more ancient. And say, for example, one of the most respected texts in Tantra, the Vijnana Bhairava, which means the knowledge of the absolute, if you like, the knowledge of absolute consciousness, the knowledge of God, if you want to use that G word, which a lot of people don't nowadays. They tend to get a bit scared of it. But the Vijnana Bhairava has 112 different dharanas, or centering techniques, tantric centering techniques, to become aware of our deepest consciousness. It's a text that I tend to use quite a lot. It's wonderful. It has concentration on the breath. There's a really wonderful one where you go outside and you whirl around like a kid. You know how when you're a kid and you just whirled around like this, arms out, around and around and around and around and around. Finally, when you're so dizzy, you can't stand it anymore, you fall to the ground. And that place of utter rest that you go to is approaching the state of Bhairava, or of absolute consciousness. You've merged into absolute consciousness. I guess what my point is here is that Tantra is much more ancient and much more complicated and much more vast than a lot of us understand here in the West. And Neo-Tantra is very powerful also. So when I teach, I tend to incorporate both elements. But one thing I do tend to do, which a lot of Neo-Tantra teachers don't tend to do, is I link it back to the scriptures. Neo-Tantra usually doesn't link back to the Tantric scriptures. So for example, Neo-Tantra might tell you how to move the energy through the body, might teach you how to move the energy with breath through the midline of the body, might teach you that sort of thing. But it won't use the scriptural understanding of this is the Kundalini energy, this is the energy of enlightenment that you're starting to lead through the body. It's a lot more technical, classical Tantra. So that can be a little bit sort of daunting for people. It's like, oh my God, look at these books. They're full of jargon, full of technology. The best way to work with them is to keep it as simple as possible and to experience it in your everyday life. Having taught now and practiced Tantra for over 20 years, I'll say to you that it's a path that really doesn't have any end. And if you ever meet a teacher who says, oh yes, I have reached the supreme goal, there is nothing more for me to attain, I am the absolute and I am one with absolute consciousness, I suggest you put on your running shoes, your Nikes or your Asics, get on your Under Armour and run as fast as you can away from that teacher. Because they're not telling you the whole story. In my view, the absolute is completely without limit. So if you're going to try and limit it by saying that you have understood it completely, well, there's something inherently wrong there. All I would say is that if you decide to work with this path of Tantra, that it'll be a lifelong journey and it'll be an incredible journey. Why? Now let's get to the commonality between Tantra, classical Tantra, Neo-Tantra. Why? Because it's about uncovering your own bliss, uncovering your own joy, living from a space of being centered, living from a space of being mindful, living from a space of being joyful, living from a space of being in the moment, living from a space of your own delicious, wonderful, nectarian, beautiful consciousness and awareness. This is the point of Tantra. So, if you decide to start on the journey, my blessings to you. Enjoy it. Have a wonderful time. I know I have. And may Tantra bestow its blessings on you in its fullness.